I made a classic beginner mistake. I started filming while I was still trying to figure things out, and I ended up with a mess. So I stopped, I finished the full setup first, then I deleted everything and started again from the beginning, doing things properly. This is a making of video behind the scenes of my tutorial on installing WireGuard VPN on home server host remote access clients including Windows, Mac, iPhone, iPad and Android. And here's the problem I hit. I started recording too early while I was still learning and troubleshooting. And I created lots of footage that was going to be painful to edit. So in this video, I'm going to show the workflow that fixed it. I'll split it into 5 parts. The problem with filming as you learn, why you should complete the setup first, why sometimes you should delete everything and start again, my equipment and filming setup, and my workflow and media management. Right, let's get into it. I've been struggling with the installation of the clients, in particular matching the client to the peer which you need to create on the QNAP host a VPN server. What I've realized is I'm creating a massive amount of screen recordings, and also I'm creating voiceovers, which at the end of the day, probably most of it won't be useful. And if it is, it will take me such a long time to find the useful clips. And then once I've done that, stitching them together in a sequence which makes sense is going to be a massive job. So what I've decided is I'll carry on completing the install. I've installed the host. I've installed 3 clients. What I'm going to do is complete installing all of the clients. And then once I've done that, I will end up with a template file, which I'm going to store in standard notes. And then what I'm going to do is uninstall everything from the QNAP server, uninstall that VPN host, uninstall all the clients, and then re-record the screen recordings and the install footage from scratch. It means I've got to basically do the install twice. Yeah, in the long run, that will save me time and effort because the footage I generate, it will be easier to pull that into the editor and cut it into the right sequence. So that's my plan. Today, I'll finish the install, record it in my standard notes app as a template, and then I'll recreate that video from scratch. I've already recorded the intro, the outro, wrap, and the end screen. I just need to record the screen recordings and the voiceover of me setting up the host and setting up the clients. Yeah, let's see how it goes. I've completed my run through and setup of all the clients. Now I know how to do it smoothly and cleanly. It makes sense to start from the beginning again. What I'm going to do though is I've already recorded plenty of videos of setting up the host. As far as I can tell, the host setup was pretty much okay. So I'm going to review those first. If they're okay, I'll just start and re-record the screen recordings for the client installs. It's going to take me a couple of hours, maybe the rest of the day, to review all of those. What I'm going to do is rename it as I go through it. Anything which is not really useful, I'm going to delete. Hopefully by the end of it, I'll know where the gaps are, and I'll just need to record the screen recordings for the gaps. Wish me luck. Here I go. We have to go and uninstall everything. Right, let's delete everything. I wanted to spend just a minute to show you what the setup I've got at the moment for making the WireGuard VPN host and clients how-to video. Over here, I have my Windows laptop, and this is where I'm creating the configuration files. What I've actually been doing is I did the full install from start to end, including setting up the server, the router, all of the clients. And when it's all working properly and I'd been through and fixed all the niggles and understood the mistakes I made and fixed those, I uninstalled everything again and then started from scratch, but this time recording it. So that config file is quite important, and I'm going to use that to help me set up the clients in a smooth manner. Up here, I've got the Samsung S20 FE phone, using that as my main video camera. Got that mounted on the small rig arm. It's got this clamp on the window handle. It's got the metal phone clamp attached to the end of the rig. Behind that, I've got my script, bullet points. Actually, I haven't been reading from that at all today because I pretty much know what I want to say. Neewer tripod, selfie stick. On the top of there, got my Neewer RGB light. This morning was really sunny, but as the day went on, it started to get darker and darker. So now I've had to enable this light because without it, it's just really too dark in here to do any proper video. The other thing is I'm using the wireless microphone, lav mic. I like this one because it's got USB device. You just plug it in and this microphone connects straight away. There's no configuration, there's no setup, there's no bulky wires anywhere connected to a transmitter. It's all self-contained in this little unit. And yeah, it's got a battery life up to 8 hours. I haven't had a problem with battery life so far. I've had a problem with it not turning on, or actually what it does, if the receiver disconnects from the device it's plugged in, the laptop, the phone or the Mac, then after a few minutes the microphone powers itself down. If you don't spot that, you can then end up recording video with no sound by accident. So just got to keep an eye on it, make sure that little green light there is constantly on when you start recording, which is easy enough to do when you remember. And the last thing I've got is on my Mac Mini, run the VPN client on as well. In all of my videos, I try and run the Windows laptop, the Mac computer, the iPhone running iOS, and the Samsung phone running Android. iPad I do as well, but that's pretty much identical to setting things up on the iPhone. I may or may not choose to do that today, depending on how I get on for time. Straightforward setup. I'll get back to making the video itself in a moment. I'm just transferring some files, record 1 or 2 clips, offload those to the computer, rename them, and then that way I don't end up with a big stack of recorded video without really understanding what is what. Right, that's the behind the scenes process. The big takeaway is this: when you're learning something technical, it's often better to do a complete run through first. Write yourself a clean step-by-step template and then record the tutorial once you know everything works. Otherwise, you end up with hours of footage which is painful to organise, rename and stitch together later for the final edit. Add a comment below if you're finding recording and editing your videos a real challenge. Let me know a few details and I'll try and help. All that's left for me to say now is thank you for watching, take care, have fun, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.